nice to see you again. It is. My name is Lauren Heistad, author to the book Homecoming. We are 5 chapters out of finishing not only my book Mastering Your SOULworks, but the entire 70 chapters to Homecoming. It's very exciting. Here we go, diving right in. This is chapter 66, and it's called Playing God. Okay. The book's getting heavy when I get to the end. Just is. Okay. Somewhere along the way, I lost my will to write this book. The lack of enthusiasm behind my expansive void could perhaps be blamed on my self-imposed pressure to compile the last book in my trilogy. Maybe the perceived weight I put on myself to have all the answers, which I don't, but the perceived weight I put on myself to have all the answers and understandings became a little too great to carry. It did. Possibly the confusion between the written word and my personal experiences within them had become too vast, way too vast to continue forward with absolute clarity. Or conceivably, my lack of motivation was based on my first 2 books. On my first 2 books having gone nowhere, remaining sealed beyond the vaults of all time, escaping the eyes and ears of many. Whatever the underlying cause or combination thereof, I lost trust in the process and truly felt I had nothing left to say or give. However, if there's one thing my life path and experiences have certainly demonstrated over time, was that I continuously was called upon to stand up and make a difference. More specifically, I was called to use my free will to express a loving and energetic authority for the manifestation of a different outcome, keeping in mind the highest good of all involved. That was always my focus. No matter how many times I tried to keep those experiences to myself, many years of experiences to myself, a dull ache within my heart begged for the truths to surface and higher knowledge to escape the confines of my soul. Definitely. So way back on December 27th, 2019, I made a vow beyond my own inner promises. Right? My own inner promises. I publicly posted images on my website for my 3rd book cover and promised its forthcoming release. Mostly so that I can hold myself accountable for what I knew I must fulfill. But also because I recognized it was officially time to bring closure to a few of my looming aspects of my life story. So the following day, it was December 28th, 2019, I made another personal commitment. Knowing that my 7 years of tribulation of not believing in myself appeared to be coming to a close, but discerning the global upheaval still in progress, I consciously made the decision to fully step into the story that appeared very much to be coming to head. Now, over the years, I had successfully used my free will on many occasions to create change. But the one thing I most certainly seemed to have no control over were those biblical words as they were written, which seemed imminent to play out. I decided that day that perhaps the story was not happening to me. It was happening for me and for all others to understand and more consciously create a better future. That day I vowed to do just that. Step into and not away from the story, to officially be the change, a change. Immediately after making my self-declaration, my guides, they brought attention to my personal timeline with that sacred convergence in time on December 27th, 28th, 2019. I stood within a very interesting point of my own history. Calculating the reference my guides had cited, I came to the awareness that within the last 48 hours, I had witnessed and come to the ending of my own personal tribulation. In fact, it had been 1,335 days since my 1,260th day of taking my chair back and reclaiming my life's role. It had also been 1,260 days since my 1,335th day of fulfillment and declaration of my connection to biblical accounts. Those 48 hours were like a mirror in time, looking directly into all past, present, and future aspects with absolute clarity. My biblical timeline was at a very destined, pivotal moment in time. Now, the real story and forward motion of transformation didn't technically begin to unfold until about a month later. Well, actually, exactly a month later. It was on January 28th, 2020, when I created a sacred space within my sanctuary. Officially sat down in my big white armchair inherited from my dear Grandma Annie and began to step into and write a new story. Now, as I wrote a few personal declarations that day, the electrical power in the whole building and surrounding area went out, and I sat within the darkness silently honoring the closure of the old and the beginning of the new. In my last book, Evolving Your SOULworks, I referenced how we were here to write a new story. How could it be that on that day, many moons later, I finally decided to complete the identified mission, sit down as an active participant in the biblical unfoldment, and start writing a new story. And not just any new story either. What I wrote that day was that all fundamental truths of this world would begin to surface. Darkness be transmuted into light. The heart-centered and morally guided would prevail. True colors would show. Veils would be brought down. False teachings would cease to control. Forged authorities and dictatorships would start to crumble. And true justice within a balanced society where heart-centered love and compassion for the highest good of all would start to abound. Amen. Add it up. Add it up, my guides had told me that day, indicating yet another milestone moment on my personal timeline. Now, this particular milestone started at the very beginning of my biblical events as I began to give my chair and roll away on November 21st, 2012, in this lifetime. The middle of my timeline occurred when I took them both back on May 3rd, 2016. Now, this day, on January 28th, 2020, somehow represented the end of my personal timeline when I officially sat in my chair to create something new while honoring the old story still in progress. Still very much in progress. It turned out to be a total of 2,625 days. From start to end. With no previous knowledge or understanding of how or when to proceed, I took up my mantle and began to write a new story at what ended up being the official and final day of my personal tribulation. Surrounded in crystals, 7 chakra candles, and incense to honor the day within my own inner sanctuary. I wrote a new beginning for both myself and the world. A new beginning beyond time, expectations, and previous written word. Now, later I investigated the milestone reference. There was no indication that I could find in the Bible that represented 2,625 days. However, there was a reference for the end of the tribulation known as a total of 1290 days plus 1335 days, which equals 2,625 of all things. It states at that time, God would take up his mantle within his sanctuary here on earth, sit in silence to honor the timeline, and then move forward with his final written judgments on this world. I wept that day for many hours. Was I really in a position of authority to start making those changes come into being? Or was I foolishly accomplishing nothing more than just playing God? Valid questions. Well, I've come to 2 distinct understandings about that day and my involvement within it. First of all, I was certainly not playing. Like any other monumental moment along the path of my entire soul works, I was fully being and embodying my own soul potential. rising to the call. Secondly, the way in which God has been depicted within scriptures is not even close to my experience of what that divine spark within us all represents. Within us all. All people in this world have the capacity and authority to stand within their own source potential. To embody love is not an act that can be derived from the space of selfishness or ego. To embody love, one must be willing, as I was, to stand up for what I knew and believed in, despite the current understandings or potential consequences to myself. You see, in all those moments where I embodied true divinity, I did not insist that I be the authority or a prophesied one, that I be more powerful than another, or that others see and hear me for how connected I seem to be. Not even close. What I did in those moments, in the valley, on the mount, in my sanctuary, or even as I wrote a new story, was to give full permission. To give full permission for all truths to come forward, despite the consequences to my own being. All false authorities be identified. All those exerting force for their own good instead of the highest good of all involved be karmically healed and brought to justice. Those choosing to be seen or heard for their own delusions of grandeur have their true colors revealed, so that higher understandings and vibrations could unfold. Most importantly, in those moments, I didn't segregate myself from the pack and consider myself above the words being written or being the only one worthy of experiencing that higher reality. What I did in that moment was put myself into the equation and asked for the truth to come forward, even if that meant every single falsity that existed within my own life path be revealed. I was not doing this to be seen or heard. I was writing a new beginning for people to see and hear a different way of being. I was writing a new beginning for people to see and hear a different way of being. I guess I'm going to say that twice. A difficult understanding, that's difficult too, but a different understanding of how much every thought, word, and deed echoes throughout time and affects all souls within the ecosystem of this energetic world we call home. It was in those moments of higher calling that my soul rose to the occasion and became a solid, conscious creator in this world. Now, my awareness or state of being is by no means limited to one soul on this earth. Not even close. To transcend into this state of mind, one does not have to fear God, appease God, nor work through someone else's perceived or pledged greater authority to reach God. To recognize that innate potential held within the depths of our individual and collective soul works, one must learn to embody God. Only accomplished as a true reflection of pure love. We must change the understanding. We must change the understanding beyond an external deity, outside the grasps of our reach, but viewed as a seed of source potential held within. I am. Okay, mastering your soul works. I've come to understand that even if I have felt and experienced an expanded state of higher authority, that is by no means limited to my own soul potential. Instead, I have experienced that level of authority because I have achieved enlightenment and yet still choose to use my own free will to help and share what I know with all others. It has certainly taken me a while to grasp that inner truth. Over the years, I could never understand why I was being called to help, make a difference. I knew I was being called, but for some reason, I always saw it as a greater authority doing the bidding as opposed to someone in need, crying out for help, and with my higher self quite capable of hearing, reacting to, and engaging in the call. In other words, I never allowed myself to believe in the possibility that I, Lauren Heistad, had somehow achieved an expanded state of mind and held the soul potential to step in and help make a difference on and of my own authority. I never gave myself the benefit of the doubt or allowed myself to go back and review all those events as they had essentially unfolded. People crying out for help, not to Lauren Heistad or Yeshua or Mary, as a mere human individual or go-between for source potential, but to the God source held within as someone who had the awakened authority to come and provide the difference needed. I was not just being the channel in those moments. I was not being summoned or responding to the orders of a greater authoritative figure from upon high. I was summoned by the power of another individual within the collective cosmos of source potential, asking me as an embodiment of the great I am to fully step into the role of a conscious creator. I was not just being a messenger. I was, and I am, the message. That is my truth, despite many, many years of doubt and insecurities I have most certainly endured. I have personal doubts all the time, in case you haven't noticed. Not about my work, not about my goals, not even about my connection to spirit. My doubts are self-construed insecurities about myself. I think we are all very active participants in this perpetual loop of self-inflicted judgments. Of course we are. To be quite honest, I've grown tired of that merry-go-round. I am tired of watching how so many people have so little confidence in their own journey. It makes me sad to see how little we trust our own choices, decisions, experiences, significance, and abilities. On a more personal note, I am tired of how I and others have perceived my own unique path. I've struggled with my worthiness to speak my truth and have reached my crossroads of learning to finally have faith in the things I've always known. In learning to combat this self-induced defaming, I started to write down my life's work, reminding myself every single day of the profound journey I have walked. The expanded awareness I do hold, and the authentic visions I have witnessed unfolding before me. If I didn't write it down, my truths fade into fears, and the light within me starts to cloud with inner doubts yet again. I've spent a lot of time in the last few years charting my life on a timeline based on journal entries and some of the more larger events that have shaped my entire existence. It's very long and absolutely miraculously amazing that I keep showing up. Right on cue. I encourage everyone to give this soulful activity of self-reflection a try. What I discovered was both startling and empowering in many ways. Over time, even though I have continued to doubt myself, have regularly handed my soul potential over to others, or perpetually belittled my own connection to spirit, when looking at the actual evidence behind those self-inflicted judgments, the personal growth, inner knowing, and historical evidence is there. It's there. I have still managed to rise. I have still managed to evolve. I have still managed to keep one foot in front of the other and move my own unique SOULworks forward. Instinctively learning how to trust my own intuition and guidance over what others have directed towards me. Myself included, no doubt. Even during the times I believed I was making no progress, and with confidence issues continuing to surface. Over time, the changes are shockingly profound. I have become stronger. My faith is unwavering. And I guarantee you, my journey is second to none. Although please remember, so is yours. In truth, I'm starting to see the benefit of my doubts. After all, never doubting oneself would signify an overinflated ego, instead of the heart-centered inner work required for personal transformation and enlightenment. It is within those moments of inner reflection that we find our foothold and keep ourselves moving towards the light. It is within those darkest days that our convictions and determination materialize. One by one, we knock our fears to the ground and rise from the ashes. And then one magical day, we even see and appreciate the entire scope of our own soul works, and learn to honor the entirety of the path we have journeyed, truly giving ourselves the full benefit of the doubt. I am here. I am here. It is time for truth to unfold. Truth behind my own story, but more importantly, the truth behind the divine greatness held within all peoples. It is time to rise. I challenge you to give yourself the benefit of the doubt and rise with me. You will be transformed. Your move. Start a new chapter. There is new potential in every old story. Many feel we have no control over future events waiting to unfold. This is an outdated perspective. In fact, that old book is officially closed. Our raised vibrational awareness will no longer allow this narrow perspective to govern our reality, nor will we permit our co-creating knowledge to take a back seat to the status quo. We are moving forward with new understandings, ideals, and heart-centered truth, making this a critical evolutionary point in our history. This is not a time to hide in the background and hope for the world to change. This is the time to step into your power and help change the world. Peace on earth is both a personal and collective responsibility. There must come a time when you find it within your own well of courage to celebrate what is truly important from the past, and then allow yourself to let go of the rest. Let it go. Stay completely centered in your own peace of mind and honor everyone else's right and responsibility to do the same. It is officially time to rise. Next, embody your voice. Many believe our state of global affairs is governed by a few powerful individuals and organizations that appear to be controlling the majority. Perhaps that is the energy and appearance of today, and certainly days gone by. But that is neither the truth of our potential reality, nor the underlying universal law of free will. Feel the energetic power struggle going on, and yet comprehend a more balanced world equally as plausible. This is not a dictatorship unless we allow the energy to flow that way. This is a globally scaled, energetic, and equalized system with each and every being on this planet having the same and equivalent right to put their heart-centered intentions out into the world and be a voice within the collective. Next, believe in your authority. Stop giving your authority away or believing there is a larger divine source or God figure outside yourself navigating your individual soul works. We are all a reflection of source potential, and we all hold the ability to embody that state of mind. Of course, we have infinite access to receive guidance, thankfully, from outside our being, and can most certainly allow inspiration to arrive through external wisdom of others. However, please do not lose sight of your ability to connect to all things. Next, replay past guidance. It is always possible to go back in time and replay the flow of energy coming into your awareness. It is also the perfect way to alleviate doubts and gain a deeper understanding of higher awareness. Pick a time in your life when you distinctly remember guidance coming in from above. Now go back and trace the energy. Is that message coming from a source outside of yourself? Or is that message very much attached, all-knowing, and coming from a higher aspect of your own source potential? Allow yourself to see, hear, feel, and know your higher truth. While you're at it, do yourself a huge favor and stop worrying, fearing, or doubting in your ability to navigate your own soul works. Trust me, you've got this. Next, lighten up. Lighten up. Global transformation is always in progress, but co-creating the change on a more conscious level of awareness is most certainly an individual and collective choice. Hold the mindset that truths will come out, solutions will be found, healing will arrive, cures will unfold, justice will prevail, darkness will fade, hearts will open, fears will subside, individual rights will be honored, and better world circumstances can and will come to light. The solution will be in letting the higher vibrational responses for those statements rise to the surface. Not via logic, opinions, or ego, but rather pure intent, soulful inspiration, and guiding light. In other words, don't take yourself or our global responsibilities so seriously that you forget to lighten up and have fun. Remove your thought process on how you believe transformation will occur, and instead allow the magic within yourself and this universe to rise to the surface. Change is not experienced through serious declarations from seats of authority. Change is experienced through the actions of light-hearted behaviors while fully relishing and stepping into our co-creative abilities. Instead of a higher power demanding change, embody your manifesting potential by calling upon your own inner power to be the change. We can either perceive this level of individual and collective authority as a heavy responsibility or a gift of empowerment bestowed upon our soul. Lighten up. Have fun with your manifesting potential. Deliberately craft your reality and truly enjoy our awakened state of conscious co-creating. And finally, join Team World. Become a co-creator for Team World. This is not simply a my life, my way kind of scenario we are faced with, nor is it one nation becoming greater than another kind of mentality. This is our world, our way. Call to action. Healing can and will come, but only if people around the globe are brave enough, compassionate enough, and determined enough to make that change come into fruition. We are here. This is your call to action. Use that heart of yours and hold the space for the greater good. Stand in this world with starry eyes, a hopeful demeanor, clear thoughts, and powerfully loving intentions always.